Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to episode of my F1 2018 career mode, episode number 99 today for the Singapore Grand Prix in Season 5. If you guys did miss the previous episode then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one with the major R&D regulation rule being set out in that episode at the very beginning, so definitely check that out if you want to get caught up going into Season 6, what the regulations are going to look like. But heading to this episode then, we plateau. The same with Renault. McLaren, though, make a step up, so they could feature quite well, but I suspect Red Bull might be good around here, even though they're fourth in the table. Red Bull, it's always a very Red Bull circuit, Singapore, really, so I expect them to go well. But Toro Rosso with a major or maybe even ultimate upgrade there, looks like, to get ahead of Mercedes once again, and now they're the closest they've ever been to Red Bull in the performance chart. So I don't know, Toro Rosso keep on spending resource points maybe, and probably to their detriment of saving points to kind of set aside the engine department that's going to get reset. They could potentially overtake Red Bull by the end of the season and become effectively the senior Red Bull family team, even though they're Toro Rosso, they're the junior team, always manufactured as the junior team. They really could become the senior team basically in the pecking order, so that'll be quite something to behold, definitely, if that turns out to be. So we'll see and update you on that as it goes on. We move on then into qualifying under the floodlights here, nighttime Singapore. Always nice to come here, but I must say, it was a very weird feeling coming into Singapore, because immediately from the first few laps of the session of Q1, my actual steering wheel, felt very odd. I don't know what exactly was going on, but the force feedback felt a little bit funny to me. I checked that I had unplugged other parts of USBs, because sometimes if I have a USB for an Xbox controller in, it can sometimes affect the force feedback, but that wasn't the case here. I even reset my wheel a couple of times in between these runs you're going to see, and it still felt very odd. So this entire episode, basically, my wheel, my steering, the handling of the car was feeling very odd. Like, it felt almost like I was getting some fake force feedback every single corner when I turned in or out of a corner, got down on the power. Very, very odd. And nonetheless, we did thankfully make it into Q2, so at least got some speed in the car. But we were very close, actually, because Vettel had a bit of an issue in this first run in Q1, and he eventually set a fast lap time. But it was quite close to Vettel initially, but then we just about made it through. And now you can just see, I don't know, maybe you can tell almost, but the way the wheel was feeling was also giving me understeer, basically, in-game, basically. That's how it translated into it, because I was having to fight the wheel against what I was feeling with my two hands, and that was sort of complicating what I was able to do on the actual game. So you can see here moments of just pure understeering off the track there, extending the track to get up into P3, but moving my wheel about in frustration, because I was like, what is going on with this wheel? Because I was just locking up here and there. The car would just start to float into one corner, then it would be so heavy the next, and it was just the weirdest feeling. So I'm really praying that next episode for Russia, it goes back to normal, because I didn't have this feeling last episode. It was literally just, as I recorded this episode earlier today, it just went a little bit berserk. So I really have no idea for it, and it meant that in the second run in Q2, massive understeer in turn 1, no feeling at all through the hairpin, and as you see through this entire sector, in sector 3, maybe visually you can also tell the car is just not wanting to turn in, really. It doesn't have any front end grip, and it wasn't like it was my setup doing that. My setup was the exact same setup I had last season for Singapore. I even ran more downforce than I did last season here this season, so my car should be gripping up even more, because there is maybe some slight chance of rain later, but I had so much just bad handling that I even broke a bit of my front wing right at the end there. It was already a disaster of a lap, and so I can't improve from P11, and in the end of it, I'm going to come across the line pretty much limp across the line with a bit of a screen freeze as well, and we're going to finish up in P12 then at the end of the day. So from the lofty heights of a win at Monza in front of the Tifosi to being knocked out, although it looked like our car was not performing well in general, because Vettel was down there in P10 in Q2, so I guess we'll never know though, because remember now in Q3, unfortunately the glitch will happen where Vettel will inevitably probably get it on pole position, I'm guessing, or at least the front row, and you'll have the Season 1 performances. But it looks like, away from the glitch setup, it looks like maybe our car is also a little bit slower around Singapore, a la kind of almost 2018 of real life. But the McLaren going well, Renault's going well. Surprised to see Verstappen way down there. Ricciardo seems to have already been knocked out in Q2 with me, maybe, or Q1 even, I think, so he had a calamity as well. But for us personally, yeah, this is the weirdest thing I've ever felt. I've never had an issue with my wheel like this ever on the F1 games. I've had it sometimes where I've forgotten to, like I said, I've forgotten to unplug my Xbox controller, so it makes the force feedback floaty and kind of not there. But I made sure, triple checked it, unplugged my wheel multiple times, so I'm hoping it's not a permanent issue, and when I plug it in for the next race, Russia, it's not an issue, and I'm hoping it is a one-off thing. But yeah, just to let you guys know, that was definitely a big asterisk on this entire episode in terms of performance today. So we'll just have to make the most of it on Sunday now in the race and see how things go.
As the sun sets over the South China Sea, the sport that never sleeps is alert and raring to go. Welcome, under the bright lights of the Marina Bay circuit, to another Singapore Grand Prix. It's a very long, very physical lap, this one, and really there's not much in the way of margin for error. So we have a bit of an endurance race for you tonight. The 3.1 miles of the Marina Bay Street Circuit wind its way around some of the iconic landmarks here in the heart of Singapore. 23 corners in total, 13 to the left and 10 to the right, making this one of the most technical circuits on the Formula One calendar, with just 47% of the lap taken at full throttle. Anthony Davidson joins me again for the race today. Let's talk about the engineer. They're starting towards the back of the field today in a car that is fast, so they'll be disappointed, won't they?
It's not a nice feeling, I promise you. They've got a quick car underneath them, but they've got onto the grid today and they need a pair of binoculars to see the start lights. They'll be desperate for a good start to make up for some of that deficit.
We're almost ready to go then, and this is what the starting grid looks like for today's race. Young superstar Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and Kimi Raikkonen completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hülkenberg, Sainz, Fernando Alonso, and Gasly, Leclerc, Hartley, Van Dorn, and Marcus Ericsson. Magnussen, the engineer, Romain Grosjean and Bottas, Hamilton, Ricciardo, Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon, Stroll and Sergei Sirotkin rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So in the end, the top 10 shootout went to Max Verstappen being on pole position on the front row with Vettel in second. So I was expecting Vettel to actually grab that pole, but surprise. So the kind of performance glitches kind of helped Red Bull in a way there with Verstappen right up there and with Ricciardo knocked out way earlier in the qualifying session. But anyway, for us then in P12, no penalties for the entire grid actually, surprisingly. So strategy-wise, a two-stop, hypersoft tyres to two sets of ultra-soft tyres. Pretty straightforward actually, and just a case of hopefully having enough fuel to push hard throughout this entire race. And we just try and make the most of it really, although I know from P12 with the issues I'm having with my wheel today, I don't know honestly what we can expect. Hopefully they will get a little bit better as I go through the race. Like if I essentially get used to driving with the way the wheel felt through the Grand Prix, because it's a very long race obviously, hopefully then we can do quite well. So let's just get into this then and just we'll just dive into the deep end really. So here we go to 5 red lights. So the Singapore Grand Prix from P12 on the grid. Our teammate in second place on front row. Fire lights are out and we're underway for 31 laps, the longest race on the F1 calendar. It's a pretty okay start into turn one, a bit cautious as we've got to watch out for our front wing. A bit of a train track kind of forming ahead of us, 2 by 2. We've got Ericsson fighting Magnussen. Magnussen pushed out a little bit by the Swede. The two still neck and neck, pretty much level into the next right-hander, so I can do nothing but pretty much just sit back here, get a bit of oversteer. Verstappen still leads then from Vettel in second place. Surprised about that. Then you've got the two Renaults, then the likes of the McLarens. You've got the Sauber right up there, and also Pierre Gasly and Hartley in the mix, as you would imagine, with the two Toro Rossos probably going forward rather than backwards in this Grand Prix. And speaking of going forwards, we're going to do the same down the inside of Magnussen then. Very opportunistic there, catch him napping somewhat. We're still going to have to do some work though on the outside. He fends hard really well, my former teammate from Season 1 and Season 2. Eventually though, we will swing through eventually into where the Singapore Sling used to be, up the order into P11 then. So a bit of a slow start by my kind of standards, but it is obviously a street circuit. Now we try and catch up on Marcus Ericsson today. Still though, the wheel was definitely at this stage already feeling still very weird, so I was trying to get used to it. And I think as we went on through the Grand Prix, later on you'll see, I think we kind of did get used to it in a way, but at the same time, not entirely. So like I said, hopefully it is fixed for next episode. But anyway, we're going to forget about that and just make the most of it as we go through the last corner then. We are still going to have the pace advantage on the Sauber, of course, and so even if I can't drive this car to the maximum match Vettel, I will I should be able to hopefully overtake these cars ahead of us, that the Ferrari should theoretically be faster than we do dispatch of Ericsson pretty quickly with a very nice move to the outside of turn 1 to the inside of turn 2 and make that move stick. And so now we're behind Brendan Hartley, who's lagging behind a little bit there. You can see on the minimap there's a fairly old big train there from Verstappen, Vettel and the 2 Renaults, and Hartley is falling back somewhat from that McLaren of Van Dorn. I think that is. Both McLarens going quite well actually, Van Dorn and Alonso. It's been a while since we've seen them both in the top 10 like this. You can see though, Singapore being Singapore, just unable to make a move on Hartley quite yet, but we really gained quite a fair bit on that left-hander in the acceleration there through the last corner. You can see the downforce differences between this Ferrari and the Toro Rosso Honda. So here we go across the line, DRS open there. We move to the right very aggressively and go for that swoop on the outside of the Kiwi man, and just like we did to Ericsson, we dispatch of him. But also, our difference is the Toro Rosso might have some decent straight line speed, so Hartley might just come back at me here. We have to be wary about that. It's lap 4, so DRS is activated, but I've got no one ahead of me by 1 second to give me that rear flap, and Hartley will have the rear flap open for him and have the extra drag reduction. So here he goes on the outside there. Big pounce by him actually. Very good under braking, but we're going to be on the left-hand side still, and side by side we go. He's got it initially into that corner. He's going to squeeze us very close to the wall there as we make a bit of contact with our front left tyre. So Hartley really flirting with the barriers and flirting with squeezing me right into a wall and ending my race. But we just about hold our own there and able to keep our wits about us and keep ahead of the Toro Rosso and try and now hopefully use the clean air ahead of us. You can see the oodles of clean air ahead of us to try and catch up to Van Dorn, but also at the same time my engineers actually called me in 1 lap earlier than I was hoping for on lap 5, and so I'm going to agree with him and probably come in for the ultras because the hypers are going off for quite a fair bit compared to what I want to. I remember from previous seasons the hypers, especially the tyre carcass temperatures, go up quite a fair amount on the hypers in Singapore, so going to go for the undercut and hopefully use that to good effect. And it looks like on the right hand side then there's too many cars around us, so I think we should have a decent amount of clean air to actually use these ultras to good effect. So now we just try and push as hard as we can with hot lap mode and rich mix engaged, and hopefully by the time we swing through onto the main pit straight later on this race, we should be able to maybe jump some cars even and get close to Van Dorn. And our plan might just work as we move on 2 laps later onto lap number 7 here. We're going to slipstream the Williams car, Sorokin I think that is, and on the outside there of turn 1 we make that move and also make the move on Fernando Alonso and jump him. So unless that McLaren wasn't Van Dorn, it was Alonso in fact, I think we've jumped both McLarens effectively here, and we now find ourselves behind Pierre Gasly, so doing some great work. And actually look at the minimap there, up the road, that's Gasly, a Renault, and then you've got the dot of Sebastian Vettel, so we're actually very close. We're on the same straight as Vettel actually. Into turn 1 we go, closing up on Gasly a fair amount. That's Van Dorn's car, and now we're on the outside of Gasly then. You've got Vettel just up the road ahead of the 2 Renaults, being held up massively by the Williams car. You know, that's the Williams car, much improved this season so far, and actually that means when the Williams car tries its alternative strategies, the Williams is actually getting more in the way than it used to in season 4, and so the Renaults now side by side. It's all kicking off there, nearly 3 wide. We're going to send one down the inside, not only Gasly but also Carlos Sainz I think that is, because he got caught up with Gasly there with some contact. And yeah, so now we're in a Renault sandwich, and we're just like that up into P6 and right in the middle of this fight now. And if this all shuffles out, we could be around P4 now. So the undercar has worked absolute miracles here at the moment at Singapore, and now this Williams car is really holding up Hulkenberg a fair bit. So maybe now we can try and use that to good advantage, try and overtake him if we can when he's behind the Williams car. Saying that though, lap 9 he's going to get past the Williams. We're going to do so as well, but I have to be way more patient than Hulkenberg and shoot it down the inside of turn 2. So really unfortunate that Hulkenberg gets away a little bit because he has way more pace than me. And so as we move on through the Grand Prix on lap 11, Hulkenberg's actually going to go and overtake Sebastian Vettel on the top left, you can see. At the same time, very nicely and ironically, Sainz will come and try and overtake me then as well in a bit of a tandem move, but Sainz unable to make it work, make a little bit of contact and a lock-up on the outside there, but Vettel's been overtaken by Hulkenberg, so the Renault going a little bit better than the Ferrari at the moment. But we are indeed in P4 here. This is 4th position. We all of us have 1 more pit stop to make, so the undercar literally worked a miracle and some. But now lap 12, Sainz is going to fly past us with DRS, unable to do anything, although he locks up. So yes, we can do something actually. I was going to say that's probably a shut and done case there. He's past us, but with that lockup, he allows us back in there. So on the right hand side, he's on the left though. He's going to shoot it on the inside there. He's going to squeeze us towards the wall, inches away from death there on the right hand side. And now he'll get that. He has way too much straight straight line speed there, and so we'll have to tuck in there. But eventually we'll get back up into P4 after initially getting knocked down, because the likes of Hamilton and a Force India of Sergio Perez are making a bit of an alternative strategy here. So on lap 14 now, the man we're fighting is Pierre Gasly. Pretty much we're just going now to our second pit stop of this race. So I'm trying to do the best job I can of fending off the Frenchman until we get to our pit stop there. But right now at the moment, he nearly scared us completely off the road as I just about turned the car left and keep this thing on the black stuff there. Now we're still side by side through the next right-hander to the left. We're going to brake early. We're going to switch back on him, and it's going to be a beautiful switchback there up into P4. That is a textbook switchback. You look up switchback in the dictionary and that is the movie you get. Absolutely awesome. And so we're going to leave that up until P18. We're going to drag this to P4 still and maintain that position. So doing some good work and a bit of a trolley train, I will admit, behind me of Gasly and Alonso there, but that's exactly what you have to do on a street circuit sometimes. Just keep the track position, and we'll also pit in on the same lap as them. So we're going to maintain track position here, and so we're doing a street circuit strategy to a T. You know, get ahead, and then it doesn't matter what happens then. Just defend the position and stay ahead. So that's what we'll do today. We're going to remain ahead of Gasly and Alonso, and now it's just about where we feed out, and also where Hamilton and that Force India, but I believe Perez, where they're going to be, because eventually, hopefully they will pit eventually, but at the moment we're way down in P12 behind the likes of Hartley. But the thought is there's going to be a heap of people that are going to make pit stops, and so as we move on to lap 20, we are going to see that now, and we'll climb up to now what will be P6, and so there'll be 2 more places to make, which will be, like I said, Hamilton and Perez, and so that will come soon enough on towards lap 21. There is Sergio Perez, there is Lewis Hamilton, and bang, we're back up into P4. So this is now our position for 10 laps to go. We just have to run this race at the end of the Grand Prix. But there is a caveat. We're going to run into some issues later on lap 24. Our DRS has failed. Now, obviously, I don't have DRS anyway activated here because there's no one in front of me, but Gasly is hot on my heels. There's also been engineer calls for forecast for rain later on in this race. Literally, as we go on to the end, it's going to start raining. You can actually look close enough on the halo. You'll see a little few streams of rain on the black to red. You can just about see it's very, very subtle, but they are there, and that's why now at the moment to turn 1, I'm struggling quite a bit for grip on lap 26 because the AI are so much better in these conditions when it's very damp and the grip's just not there, and so I go so wide on the last corner, lap 27, and Gasly has a very good chance to make a pop now to the inside. We have to leave him room, and he's made contact with us there, and it's so slippery now on the curbs as well. We're going to desperately try and plant the power down. You can see there the tail wagging of the Ferrari car like an absolutely excited dog, but Gasly's going to find the grip on the outside there, plants the power. We have nothing to answer for. We have no DRS there, and so we just can't match him. We've got Alonso also right behind us. We have to do some defensive work there and try and squeeze Fernando into the apex, and we just about managed to keep the head of Alonso there, but alas, I think that might be a position gone for good for us in this race. Meanwhile, for the race lead it's Sebastian Vettel. He tried his luck on the outside of Verstappen in the last 4 laps of the Grand Prix, but Verstappen defiant as ever and very hungry to keep that race lead there in these tricky, damp conditions, and I try my best to also maybe get back on Gasly there. You can see myself wrestling the car on the main straight. I'm well within 1 second here of Gasly, but I have no DRS, remember, because it's failed here, so I can't even close up on him there, and through the corners I'm losing more time than I'm gaining because of that rain, and so you can still see it just very subtly coming there. It's very hard to actually tell because even I was questioning myself if there was actually rain coming down because my engineer told me so many times there was rain, but I couldn't actually see it, but I could certainly feel it in the corners, and so in the end it will be Max Verstappen that wins the Grand Prix from Vettel in second place, but it's still a pretty good P5 there from what was the situation of us down in P12 and with the wheel issues and also then the rain at the end and the DRS failure. So many things went wrong today for us, and so P5 feels like a bit of a good victory, to be honest, so I'll take that.
Well, I hope we can do better than that at the next race. Not our best day by any means.
So another fantastic victory for Red Bull today. And I have to wonder, Anthony Davidson, just what set them apart from the competition here.
Well, time management probably played quite a large role in the outcome of this one. As ever, it's not just about speed, it's all about maintaining that speed consistently over a stint, over a race distance. So being able to keep up the lap times while still being smooth on the controls and gentle on the tyres, that's really where the race was won today.
So here come our winning drivers today, and what a race it was. There's been a big push at the factory lately to get these cars ready, and we can see the fruits of that labour today as Red Bull lift the winner's trophy.
So in the end, Max Verstappen gets a pretty surprising win, actually, and to say he kind of got the pole maybe with a bit of a glitch in Q3, he actually held on to it really well there. The advances from Vettel fended off fair and square, so deserves that victory, but Vettel gets second, and so the gap will close a little bit, but of course it's only a tiny scratch on the good comfortable lead we had, and it's still a 1-2 for Ferrari in the championship. Sainz maintains third. Verstappen, though, climbs up a little bit there with Ricciardo faltering after a pretty quiet race for him. Constructors-wise, no change there, and I think with Vettel's second place, I think he just about maybe was able to keep it level with Renault in terms of the points they had to us. So all in all, can't complain too much about that in the end, but I really do hope those wheel issues are sorted for next episode here. Hopefully, you know, keep everything crossed, guys, in the comments. But let's go to the questions then before we round out the episode.
Amazing performance out there. You must be really happy. Did you struggle to get through all that traffic today?
Going to compliment the car on the chassis side of things, call it a bit of a ballet dancer, because definitely did help me dance around, especially Ericsson and Harley before.
Did you feel comfortable in the wet weather today?
This question 100% confirms there was rain there, even if you couldn't see it, so I'm going to go for the showmanship answer.
You scraped the walls a few times. Were you struggling for grip?
And I was struggling for grip, but that was more so because of the rain, so I thought in the end I'll just go for a no answer, no comment really, no point kind of having rep decrease there for no reason.
Great. Well, that's everything.
And so that will see the end of the episode. Of course, we're still at this stage of the race, the season right now, saving R&D points. If you saw last episode, we've got that reset, so we need to try and save points for that potentially. And also, if Renault are going to make upgrades to try and catch us in the performance chart, then we need to be ready for it. But great to see the toxic relationship is back again in good form for Ferraris. We get a big rep decrease for coming in 5th and qualifying 12th. Good stuff. Some things never change in Season 5. So guys, if you did enjoy that episode, smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around, subscribe for weekly full-on content. I've been aarava. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.